Yeah. That's right.
Yes, no. No, really?
I'm a nuance. Like if you ask me a question and you're just like, look at these earrings. How long?
Hey, thank you, everyone, for coming today. We're very, very excited. Today's, or I guess technically yesterday's, decision is a victory for voters for reform and for the rule of law in Utah. And it's also a victory nearly 8 years in the making, and it belongs to the people of Utah. When voters passed Proposition 4 in 2018, they made history. They demanded fair representation, transparency, and accountability. They said voters should pick their politicians, not the other way around. And now, better boundaries, Proposition 4, is the law of the land in Utah and will continue to be. And last night I was talking to my sister about all of this, and she said something that stuck with me. She said that Utah, it's a beautiful and varied place, from the mountains to the east to Zion to Bryce to Capitol Reef and the high Uintas. And what makes Utah special is how all those differences come together to make something beautiful. You don't want just Zion or just a mountain range. You want all of it, the red rock, the snow, the skiing, the lakes. And these differences in our geography, our people, and our perspectives are what make this state special. And this decision today affirms that those differences deserve representation. Representation is the promise the Constitution makes to every community. And some will try to use that same document to say their hands are tied or that nothing can change. But the Constitution is not a shield for power. It was written to protect the people and to keep their voices at the center of government. It protects every Utahn, no matter where you live or what you believe. We are a government by the people and for the people, not by the politicians and for the politicians. Still, too many Utahns believe their voices don't count. We just came off elections where cities were celebrating nearly 30% turnout. People don't vote because they don't feel heard or believed. That's the cost of a system people stop believing in. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Next year, Utahns will go to the polls knowing their vote matters a little more, that their voices carry weight, and that leaders they elect will have to answer to them. There will be more challenges ahead. There always are when you challenge power. But we will protect this process so every community stays intact and every representative is rooted in the place they serve. And thank you to everyone who hasn't given up on this fight. You stood up against the elite politicians, deep-rooted special interests, and money. And we have these incredible people behind me right now who took this fight to court and affirmed what we have always known, that we have the right to alter our government, we have the right to fair representation, and that our Constitution guarantees those protections. You proved that when Utahns act together, we can overcome even the strongest opposition. We've waited 8 years for this moment, and today that wait was worth it. Now I'll pass it on to some of the plaintiffs who will give their statements as well.
Hi, my name is Emma Adams. I am the co-executive director of Mormon Women for Ethical Government, also known as MWEG. Today, the people of Utah are getting what we voted for 7 years ago, a fair map. Utah is a special place at a time when politicians are rushing to gerrymander their states for political advantage all over the country. A cross-partisan group of Utah citizens, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, are finally seeing the fruits of their persistence and years-long commitment to do the opposite. According to our Constitution, the people have the right to alter and reform their government, and today, our congressional map reflects that right. It is a very good day indeed. This effort marks the culmination of work by countless citizens, and today we see that when people come together across party and ideological lines, we can exercise great political power. Not partisan power to control or win at all costs, but principled power that values the opinions of our neighbors and desires systems and processes that encourage healthy disagreement and debate. Such principled power is the pathway to representation. When we, the people, are represented fairly, we have an increased sense of agency and greater self-efficacy. We're more likely to be actively involved in the public sphere, to exercise healthy patterns of civic engagement, and to build relationships with our elected officials. And they are more likely to engage with and listen to our voices. It is a virtuous cycle, and there will be many who will try to frame this victory through the lens of partisanship. Some will co-opt this as a win for their party, and others will see this as a loss and use it as a rallying cry for theirs. Let me be clear about what this case has always been about for MWEG. We stand firmly opposed to gerrymandering, no matter which party initiates or benefits from it. Our organization includes a politically diverse group of women who live all over the state. Once we determined that we would become a plaintiff, we needed to be able to look our fellow Utahns in the eye, no matter their political affiliations or ideologies, and say that we did everything we could to support their constitutional rights. Our persistence was born out of love of the people, this state, and our country. And at every step of the way, we've tried to engage in a way that will build unity and support peace. Because gerrymandering breaks things, we all have some fixing to do. Let us reach out to our neighbors, our elected representatives, and our friends and family and do some mending. Let's seek to heal wounds, to reconcile with those who have different political points of view, and to pledge to work together to solve problems. This is the work of collaborative democratic governing. It's how our nation was built in spite of great differences. Partisanship tears apart our civic fabric, but we have the power within us to do the hard work of repair. As peacemakers, we're committed to doing that, and we invite everyone to join us. Thank you.
I'm Catherine Bealey. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Utah, and we have been in an incredible partnership with the Mormon Women for Ethical Government. Thank them, thank you. I'm here to thank the voters of Utah. It was you who made this happen. This was perhaps the most impressive grassroots effort in the United States of America. We have done something special. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, you now have a voice. We have fair districts. In the next election, you will see, we will have some competitive races, but there will be a reason to vote. That is something that every voter should take to their heart. Stunningly, the legislature isn't giving up. We have simply sent a message to them that they need to represent the voters. It should be a pretty easy task. Instead, today, stunningly, they have filed a bill to impeach the judge for doing her job. This is unbelievable. She's not doing anything that she shouldn't do. This came from the Supreme Court of Utah. I will say Article 1, Section 2 gives the people the right to change their form of government, which is just exactly what we did. So thank you, voters. Pay attention. This is not going to stop. The legislature also has an initiative to repeal Proposition 4. And as Emma said, Proposition 4 is the law of the land, and we can live with that. Thank you.
Morning. My name's David Ryman. I'm an attorney with Parr Brown. I'm one of the lawyers on the legal team representing the plaintiffs in this case. As people have mentioned, it's been 7 years since Utah voters, after decades of political games drawing maps, finally said enough and got politics out of redistricting. They spoke with clarity and they spoke with purpose. They didn't want favor, they just wanted fairness. And it's been 7 long years fighting against the legislature's repeated efforts to ignore, undermine, and not follow that law. Many of you I've seen throughout that much of that time when we've been prosecuting this fight, and it's been a very long fight. And the gratitude that the people behind me have expressed today is well deserved. But today, finally, is a day to celebrate that the voice of the people has finally been heard and vindicated, that Utahns are tired of partisan political games and manipulated contests and elections, and that the legislature, most crucially, must comply with the Constitution, and they can't ignore it just to try to keep themselves in power. One of the geniuses of our constitutional system of government has always been that the branches are independent, that they serve as checks on each other, that no branch, no matter how much they may want to, can act as a king. So today, in addition to the victory for the voters of Utah, we also celebrate that when the legislature violates the people's rights, when it seeks to ignore the Constitution just to maintain power, Utah's courts will stand as a protector of the people and our democracy. And that is something that all of us can celebrate regardless of our political stripes. Thank you very much.
We'd be happy to answer a few questions as well.
What are the next steps? Do you expect the legislature to seek an emergency appeal, and what happens, especially now that we do have a map in place?
They have indicated that they would appeal this decision, and so I believe that's expected. But anyone else care to?
Well, we have a lawyer here.
Yeah, we have a lawyer.
We don't know the precise answer to your question about whether they're going to seek a stay. No one has said anything about that. We've always known in the end they have disagreed with even the premise of Proposition 4, and so we expect that they will appeal that. The question that nobody knows this morning is whether that they are going to try to prevent the map that the judge ordered to be put in place and that the lieutenant governor said would be put in place and that needed to be put in place by yesterday, whether they will seek to disrupt that process and ask the court to put a different map in place.
Can they do that?
That's why we think the argument isn't valid. And the whole reason the court was put in this position to try and put a new map in place is because the legislature failed to do its job and enact a legally compliant map. Courts don't do this by default. You know, they do it when the legislature doesn't do its job. And that is the reason that the court was put in the position that it was put in. And as you rightly point out, the 2011 map is malapportioned, the 2021 map is unconstitutional, and the map that the legislature, when they were given yet another chance to put a compliant map in place, also violates the law. And so that's why we don't think any request for a stay would be valid. We think that's wrong. We think that we had 2 days of extensive evidence that disproved that.
As far as the threats to impeach Judge Gibson and, I don't know, even chatter of maybe potentially going after the lieutenant governor if she adheres to the court order, any more you can say about that? And also, does that ever happen in other states where the legislature threatens to impeach a judge or has impeached a judge over redistricting rulings?
I can't speak this morning to other states, and I do want to emphasize that today is a day we should all be celebrating the vindication of the voters of Utah and the courage that courts show in the face of enormous political pressure. I think that the threats that we have seen about impeachment so far are irresponsible and unfortunate. And I hope that they are merely the initial throes of disappointment of the legislature being disappointed that they've lost, and not something that they would actually pursue as a form of political reprisal, because that would be damaging to our democracy.
Republican lawmakers continually say the judge is violating the Constitution. What do you say to that?
Well, they've just been proven repeatedly wrong about that. I mean, the court's role is to interpret the Constitution and decide whether what the legislature has done complies with it. And just because they disagree with what she has ruled does not mean that she is violating the Constitution.
Well, it's not just her ruling, too. It's the Utah Supreme Court that interpreted the
That's right.
So do you expect, I mean, in terms of the process here, do you expect another return trip to the Supreme Court on this, or is there still the merits to be decided, or any other merits to be settled?
It's a bit of a technical question. I guess I'll just answer it this way. Everything is not final, but there are a few, I would say, final things that we need to bring to a resolution. But the fundamental part of the case, which was putting a map in place that complies with the Constitution and complies with the law that voters enacted, that has been done. And if there will eventually be an appeal of many different rulings that have been entered in the case, and like I said, we don't know whether the legislature will try and disrupt the process. They are entitled to have their arguments heard on the merits by the Utah Supreme Court in due time, and they'll get that opportunity. But as far as what has happened in the district court, most of its work at this point is done.
Can someone address the initiative that's still in place where we thought we could spend 7 years on this? Could it all be undone next year?
No.
We're confident, and we trust the voters of Utah that they'll choose fairness. But of course, we have a fight ahead of us for next year. But right now, today at least, we're just celebrating this win, and more to come on that.
It's not repealed next year. Is there an opportunity to challenge specific houses that are also now in violation?
Let me make sure I heard the question. Is the question, is there a chance to challenge other maps that are currently in place? Yeah, that's not part of our case. I can just say generally that because Proposition 4 is the law of the land, and Proposition 4 allows for challenges to not just the congressional maps, but all maps, if I were guessing, I would say yes, but not part of the case.
Why wasn't it part of your case? Because if the argument is, well, Prop 4, the overturning of Prop 4 is the problem, then Prop 4 was overturned for all of us.
Yeah, I can say it was part of our case to the extent that we wanted Prop 4 reinstated. As to whether the case should have involved challenges to different maps, I can't speak to that this morning.
Elizabeth, I wanted to ask, what does groups like Better Boundaries, I mean, you ran your organization's one that passed, ran the campaign for Prop 4. So what do you do in the next year now that you do have a map, so you got what you wanted, but what do you do now that you also have a potential another citizen initiative to undo Prop 4?
I mean, we'll do what we have always done. We'll talk to the people of Utah. We'll let them know what's going to be on their ballot. And our whole goal is to make sure that Utahns' voices are heard. And if we can get better turnout next year and people feel like they're being trusted and listened to, that's a huge win for us.
So are you actively campaigning against the signatures, or are you kind of letting the signature gathering play out and see what happens on the ballot?
I mean, our role will be to educate people on what they're signing, but for now we're still, our role is to educate people on what they're signing right now, and we'll continue to follow it as it progresses. Yeah.
Well, as far as the League and MWEG are concerned, we are asking people to decline to sign. We don't want another initiative here. Isn't that kind of ironic that they are running an initiative to overturn an initiative? The people have spoken. We are going to continue no matter what. We are volunteer organizations. We don't have taxpayer money to run this kind of campaign, but they do. So it's the voters, it's us, it's up to us, it's up to the voters, it's up to you to make a difference.
I would just add that every morning I wake up and I open my social media and another MWEG member has spontaneously written about this. She's attended a hearing, she's written an op-ed. So at some point, when the people see what it looks like to have a collaborative democratic governing process, when they saw the maps, the map process during the independent commission, to watch this play out, to see the repeated back and forth of the legislature, at some point the people just take over and do what they're gonna do. Right? They have been empowered. People in Utah have been awakened to what it feels like to engage in a nonpartisan, cross-partisan way, and that is so powerful. And once you feel that, you want to keep it going. And so I am so proud of all of the citizens. My texts just keep getting filled up with people who just are like, Emma, I went to this and I gave this comment for the first time in my life. I've never engaged in the political process, but this experience has enlivened them and they have felt the power of what it looks like to do so. So in that respect, we have won big already just to watch that empowerment happen. Yeah, we have, MWAG and I think the League as well, in the last session there was a number of bills that were kind of chipping away at judicial power. We absolutely always take a close look at those. I know that there are lawyers in this state. I know that there's a lot of people in the legal field who are deeply distressed at this, and I'm assuming that they too will step forward and defend the judiciary. I mean, it's really interesting to watch the institution of the judiciary be so disregarded. I mean, it's problematic. And I look at some of the conservative women among us and we're like, this has been our whole platform, our entire life has been defending institutions. So it's deeply problematic to watch an attack happen on the very institution that many of us have spent our lives upholding and lifting up. And I think when you have a ruling like this, and I agree with what David said, in the immediate aftermath, you give a lot of grace for people and feeling upset and distressed at losing. And I really, really hope that after that initial period kind of settles in, that we can come together and recognize that we have three branches of government. They're each important. They're meant to check and balance each other. And we the people, the legislative branch is our branch. So we'll be continuing to ask them to reflect our will and to not attack the judiciary.
Can someone outline how you guys drew your map? Because short of what's in the ruling, the judge on the floor and
That's your.
it does this, it does that, but what was the process? Because I think there's a lot of criticism too that you could have used partisan data, or nobody knows how you drew it, or anything like that.
Yeah, all that criticism is not correct, and it must be coming from people who weren't paying attention to the hearing, because how the map was drawn was explained in great detail. It came from a simulated ensemble from an expert from the University of Michigan. It is one that coheres with the vast majority of maps that comply with Prop 4's neutral redistricting criteria. And to the criticism that, well, this must be also a partisan gerrymander because it has a district that looks like it might favor Democrats. What the court found and what the expert evidence showed was that is the natural result of Utah's political geography, where you have a large proportion of the minority party concentrated in a single place. And so it shouldn't have been surprising that when you actually comply with the criteria that voters put into place, that is going to be the natural result. That is not a partisan gerrymander. A partisan gerrymander is taking a state's political geography and manipulating it so that you do not have the natural result. And so the whole reason you run all these simulated maps is to say, if you're not trying to do that, what would the maps look like? And virtually all of them show what map 1 shows. And that's why the court picked map 1, because she said, this is what the voters wanted in terms of criteria. This simulation programmed all of those criteria in, and this is the map that best complies. It had nothing to do with the fact that it has a district that looks like it might favor Democrats. It had to do with the fact that that's what the criteria in the law naturally result in. Well, the urban-rural mix was always a canard that the legislature spread that had no textual support in Prop 4. Prop 4, the voters didn't say we want a mix of urban and rural. That was always just a justification to crack Salt Lake County. And so, I don't think they even attempted to make that argument in the evidentiary hearing. It was so unsupported. So I think that the court did an unbelievably meticulous job of going through all of the evidence, which was very complicated, and coming to a result that the evidence supported. And I just want to take just a moment while I'm up here to answer Robert's question about the fact that Judge Gibson can't defend herself, and that is unfortunate. And I am just speaking for myself. plaintiffs in this case. But as you know, many of you know, but Robert, I know you know especially well, the Utah legal community as a whole, political stripes aside, is very protective of the independence of the judiciary. And if there is really an effort to retaliate against Judge Gibson, I think that the legal community as a whole will stand up and defend her full-throatedly, and they should. She is an unbelievably respected judge in the community. She has done a fantastic job in this case, whether you agree with her decision or not. She has done the role that the Constitution committed to her, and to suggest that she should be removed from office just because you don't like politically the result that she has reached, I think is highly irresponsible. So that is just me speaking. That is not me speaking on behalf of the plaintiffs, but I think that the legal community cares about judicial independence, and they will be the ones to step up and defend Judge Gibson.